Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be talking about adapting influencer marketing strategies for better ROI. So, the marketing landscape is constantly evolving, and it's not exclusive to any one area or focus, especially influencers. And for those of us who can adapt, will thrive. So that's why today we're meeting with a couple of guests to discuss the changes in influencer marketing strategies and how studios and even publishers can adapt, shifting from a traditional PR to influencer marketing to maximize their ROI. So, between diving into tools, strategies, and mindset, we're going to cover everything needed to keep up with these changes and maximize your influencer marketing efforts. So, that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey, everybody, and we're back. And today with us, I have Antoine and Xavier of Streamforge. Guys, how is it going? And thank you for coming back.
Thank you. It's great to be here for a second time in a row. I don't remember exactly when the first time was, at least a year ago, I will assume, but it's great to be back here. Thank you.
Same. Very happy to be back. Hopefully, we talk about pizza again this time because it's one of the only things I remember from that last conversation.
Yes, we will find a way to bring back pizza in this conversation. And yeah, it has been a while because, I mean, folks, Xavier was on episode 278 where we were talking about using data to create impactful influencer campaigns. And, Antoine was on the show, episode 292, where we were talking about layering beats and events, and that's where that whole pizza analogy conversation came into play. So really great episodes. If you need to backtrack or haven't checked those episodes out, highly recommend doing so. But today we're here for a different reason. But for those of you who didn't listen to those episodes or simply forgot, we're gonna do some brief introductions here. So I'll let you guys kind of take it, like, because you're part of Team Streamforge, as I kind of alluded to a moment ago. But please tell us what's your involvement and what is Streamforge again for those of who might not be familiar.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let Antoine tell our listeners what Streamforge is, but I'm the co-founder and CEO of Streamforge. And yeah, I've been at Streamforge for 6 years now. So it's been a while. I have over 15 years experience as a founder, over 2 decades as in sales, marketing, and advertisement. It's feel old saying those numbers, but yeah. Antoine, what do you do at Streamforge?
So I'm a director of business development at Streamforge, which is an influencer marketing platform that helps gaming publishers, agencies, get in touch with the right influencers, the right audiences, using AI analysis to kind of inform those decisions. And it's really, again, it's funny that you mentioned that Xavier was here to talk about data, because that's still, the main thing that we do at Streamforge is analyzing that data, getting you the right data points to make the right decisions around influencer marketing.
Yeah, I've liked mentioning business intelligence more and more these days.
Yeah.
On my background, well, I led a 360-degree indie games marketing agency here in Montreal. Was working with upwards of 10 to 12 indie studios at a time. So doing trailers, doing strategy, obviously working on influencer marketing. Worked with Xavier in the past in some campaigns, and then we basically realized that we were two peas in a pod, and started working with them around February, which is when we actually launched the Streamforge platform itself to the public.
Yeah, for sure. I myself, just quickly on my background as well, like I've done content creation on Twitch and YouTube for a few years. Then started Streamforge, and in the past 6 years before launching the platform, I also led over 100 campaigns, influencer marketing campaigns for the game industry. So was lucky enough to work on some incredible titles and incredible publishers and developers over the years.
Yeah. So, I mean, between the two, lots of experience. And I mean, in that time as well, too, I mean, What Xavier, you even spoke at South by Southwest, Migs, and many other events, and Antoine yourself too. You held a panel self-publishing at Migs, and for those of you who aren't familiar, Migs is a uh, industry event in Montreal, Canada. So a pretty well-known one, at least in Canada for sure. So yeah, definitely have lots to say about this, and part of the reason why we're here. But before we get into that conversation, we do have a mini Q box round because you already guys went through it once, so we're gonna have you go through it one more time. And the first question of the Q-Box round, I'm not even asking you if you're ready because I know that you are. And if you're not, well, we'll just go with it. Is what's the most common mistake you see devs or studios make with their games?
I'll say thinking about marketing as an afterthought, not thinking about it early enough. And yeah, that'd be my short answer.
Yeah, I pretty much concur. We were discussing it earlier, and that's definitely what came up to us. It's like marketing comes too late in the process oftentimes, and it should be integrated, even at pre-production, even at prototyping, even when you have an idea about a game, marketing should already, be in the room with the designer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more either. So great point there. And then to wrap up the Q box round, the one that I'm sure most of our listeners are familiar with is, what game are you guys playing now?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying Silent Hill 2 right now. I played the original and 2 and the different ones on PS2, but it's been a while, and this remake, and I think we talked about remakes back in the previous episode we did together, if I'm mistaken, but this one, I'm incredibly impressed. Um, and I feel like the flow of the game, and it has to do with, the original as well, but the flow of the game is great. It's really well balanced. I truly enjoy my experience thus far. And I typically jump from one game to another in my life. This one, I'm really sticking to it, and I really want to finish it. So, yeah, hats off to Konami and the devs on Silent Hill 2.
On my end, I'm also doing spooky season, so I'm playing Faith on Switch, which is a game published by New Blood Interactive, which is a very super lo-fi horror title, super creepy. Like, it's hard to even describe the art style because it kind of looks 8-bit, but you have some rotoscoping done in some parts. Really digging it so far. They just released on Switch. It's great to see these kinds of very wacky experiences that you only, you assume it's only on Steam and it stays on Steam and you need to be a PC player to experience them. But hats off to New Blood Interactive for bringing that to Switch. It's been carrying my spooky October gaming for a couple of days now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like pre 8-bit, if you could call it that. It's like Atari.
Yeah.
It's almost not completely like Atari like graphics and stuff. And it's amazing. Like you think sometimes you need that good image quality for some spooky stuff, but nope, it's all about the approach and delivery. So, wow, great choices there. It's getting me on board with playing some again. I was playing Layers of Fear at one point, and well, I need to continue that soon. But at any rate,
That's a good one.
yeah, definitely very atmospheric, as are all the games that you're playing. So thank you for sharing that with us. And now let's get into the conversation, because you know what, this is kind of a big one. I mean, I know I probably say that every episode, folks, but really it is, especially when times are changing, the industry's changing. So when it comes to adapting influencer, the strategies around influence and such, we really got to be on the outlook, and which is why we're talking about adapting influencer marketing strategies, not just because of the times of changes, but also what's the bottom line? We want to get a better ROI. So to kind of kick off this conversation, I mean, guys, like what's the evolution from like traditional PR to influencer marketing been like over the past several years? And, how do you see, studios and publishers adapt their marketing strategies because of this shift?
I think speaking about moving from PR, traditional PR to influencer marketing, I think it's a lot more PR agencies are doing influencer marketing these days because there's a lot of similarities between the two. Ultimately, I think there's more and more fatigue when it comes to traditional media traditional advertisement, online ads, no, not just for gamers, but consumers overall. People are looking to, you know, they're looking for being referred to things that they care about by watching their favorite influencers that they trust. And and that's a big shift we've seen, you know, we've seen more and more companies doubling, tripling their influencer marketing budget. We've seen some companies doing only influencer marketing with their marketing budget. So this is something that, we've seen recently. So there's definitely a shift, a bigger shift, but that's because gamers and consumers in general, they care more about getting, suggestions for games to play by their favorite influencers because again, they trust them. They know what they like, they know the games they play, and they're gonna value their opinion.
Yeah, I think like we often talk about this very dark artsy kind of marketing, which is when you get to that word of mouth thing, like when you hear about like me talking to you about Faith, like you've played it, yeah, I assume you've heard about it somewhere, but it's like who are you gonna trust more than your friends or somebody whom you value the opinions of. So it's basically being able to scale that word of mouth efforts is what we're seeing with indie influencer space, right? So if you follow creators that you trust, that you have built kind of an authentic, I don't want to say relationship because that gets into the para relationship kind of area there, but still you do build a relation with those influencers and you trust them and you trust that their taste is similar to yours. So yeah, I think like that kind of that way to bring that word of mouth to the masses is really what it's all about in terms of influencer marketing.
Let's not forget as well, a lot of gamers spend more time in their favorite influencers communities than they spend time with their IRL friends, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just a fact. So it's their friends group in many cases, particularly with smaller nano micro influencer communities, you know? So it's really, if you can find which community your game should be featured in, you can really get the friends in those communities like talking about your game, and it's the you get into like a friend circle, if you will, right? So that I've seen this shift more and more over the past few years since I started doing content. Where I started, I mean, I don't do any content anymore. I like
You're doing some right now.
well, that's true, I guess, but I've just seen this shift being more present than ever nowadays. So,
Yeah, and you know what, you guys were both touching upon, I think, a really important part of this. It's that trust, it's that relationships, it's that value in these, connections that are formed. Because if we think back to the days of press, which are still common, I mean, I don't think people, players have that same type of relationship or even rapport. It's very much well, in both cases, they're kind of one-sided, but one is a lot more interactive than the other. If you're seeing someone play, you like watching them and everything else, you form this bond, even though you probably have never met that person before. And it's a very strong and valid connection. And again, that's probably the biggest reason why. And then I'm not going into other details as to why, but that's going to be the biggest one, right? Is that trust and those relationships that can be established. And like you called out too, it's like when you're talking about word of mouth, when you're talking about who do you trust when you're deciding to do anything in your life, if you're making a significant purchase or you're trying to decide something, you go to your friends, you go to groups of people that you can trust and rely on to make those things. And so influencer marketing is no different than what we've seen, what we've experienced all this time as humans, essentially, right? So lots of things are changing. And, because of that change, I want to discuss a little bit more about this adaptation that's kind of going on, with these strategies. And, what would you say, at least for right now, are some of the main challenges, like people making this shift when they're trying to adapt from, let's say they're so used to this, because let's face it, it's still a thing, this traditional PR, what are the challenges when people are having the shift? Is it like mindset, or is it other obstacles that are kind of getting in the way?
I mean, high level is not knowing where to start. I think a lot of teams know they should, on paper, do influencer marketing for their games. I think a lot of them, I mean, other than the fact that they often think about it too late in the process, I think, they don't know where to start. So they push it back, they push it back, they push it back. And then it's like, okay, so we're launching in 2 weeks. What should we do? Well, frankly, it's probably too late, to have a meaningful impact on your game at that moment. And I think the main blocker is not, again, knowing how to get going, what the different steps are. And it's from, an outsider's perspective, it's a daunting task, and there's a lot of things that go into, getting a content creator to make content about your game to their audience. You have to find them out of like 25, like for example, we have 25 million content creators on Streamforge, our platform. That's a tremendous amount of creators. That's across Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, but it's just a lot of data. So like you look at it, it's like, okay, where do I start, right? So you need to find the right creators and audiences across these millions of creators. Then you have to contact them. You have to negotiate with them, potentially. You have to, set up tracking, pay them potentially if you're not doing just organic. Like, there's a lot of steps, and then reporting the results. So when an outsider that has never done it before or has never used like a platform to help with that, or I understand how daunting it could be. I've been in that position, by the way. When I started Streamforge, I was like, all right, let's do this thing. And then that's why we built the platform, by the way, because I was like, I was looking at what was out there and it wasn't very helpful. So I've been in the seat of like, all right, how should we be doing influencer marketing 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like to your initial point about like not knowing like how or where to start, it's also about like, being trusted, right? It's like if you come in and it's a common theme that we've started with that quick round of questions of like when you start thinking about those things when you're a couple of days away from launch, you would never do that with traditional PR. So why would you do it with influencer marketing? And I don't want to say, because we're talking a lot about like that transition, and like traditional PR is still a tremendous, aspect, an aspect of marketing that you really need to be good at. And it's not like influencer marketing is the only thing you should be doing. What some people do and to great success, as we've talked together before, Andrew, marketing is, a holistic approach to how you're bringing that product to the masses. So I feel like you need to identify where are your strengths in traditional PR that translate to influencer marketing, and how can you, use those same, hooks, those same pitches, those same approaches to content creators from what you've been doing with traditional PR. Because at the end of the day, it's getting people interested in your game. It's a similar thing. It's just a different beast. It's a different medium. So as Xavier said, it's daunting because it's this gigantic thing that you don't know how you should approach it. But you probably have a lot of stuff in your back pocket that you can already use to approach this at an earlier stage in development of your game.
Yeah, and you know what? These are all great points, guys. Because let's face it, like you called out earlier, Xavier, just not knowing where to start. And even if we have that good idea or feel pretty confident, there's nothing worse than getting there, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm stuck somewhere because I didn't anticipate this or that or the other thing. It's one of the main reasons why I never have done or offered as a service PR or even influencer, because I know to the extent, and it's just not. So I'm grateful there's platforms like Streamforge out there that can help with that. But that said, I mean, yeah, like knowing where to start and then kind of meandering and navigating through that too. But and also, Antoine, what you said, that a holistic approach, because and it's not just to say like one over the other either. It all depends on your intent. Well, what's your objectives? Because sometimes there is great value in going with PR, especially if you're looking for more of a authoritative take on things and whatnot. There's all many things, but at the end of the day, we're here to talk. We're looking for awareness. We're looking for results, and that's another thing I want to ask about too. Because hey, look, all right, fine. We get to this position where we know these things and know where to start and know how to navigate, but then it comes down to at the end of the day, we always want better ROI. And I know sometimes it gets in conversations, it's about, well, how can I track ROI? How can I get effective ROI with things like influencer marketing? Because then it's like we took off one layer about not knowing, and now there's this whole other layer of not knowing what the bottom line is. So, that said, how can teams effectively adapt their strategies to leverage, you know, influencer marketing, but also get a better ROI than what we may have seen in the past?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to finding the audience that will connect the most with your game. And that's the beauty with influencer marketing and these communities is that, through data and through the different innovation in the space, like we're able to give visibility to publishers and devs on exactly who they should go after, like who they should connect with to put their games in the hands of this gamer, this creator, these audience, like that audience that will, you know, connect, engage, be relevant to the most. And I mean that's how you get the better ROI. Bottom line, you find the people that will care the most about your game. And when you do, like, you're talking about PR, and I agree with Antoine, it's something that's important to do still today. That being said, it's a bit like I compare it to having a billboard by the highway versus, doing targeted online ads, where it's like, it's good to have a billboard. It generates visibility. It's important. But if you want to really maximize ROI, you really care about, getting and calculating, by the way, every dollar that you invest to know how much you got back. Influencer marketing to me is the answer. And because of the technology that's been developed, just the last year, it brings it to a whole other level.
Yeah, I think it always comes back again. We're hammering the same nail over and over again, but like, get interested, get involved, like look at those communities, understand who your target community is, and don't just wait for it to happen. You need to constantly be interested in the space to make effective use of influencer marketing. I think like you can't be passive with that, because if you stay passive, it's just gonna fly you by, because things change really quickly in the world we live in today. And as we metaphysical, but in influencer marketing in particular, just as well, you can see trends come and go in the market through influencer marketing as well. So I think it's all about putting those processes in place as early as you can, because as Xavier mentioned, I mean, it's, if you're just looking at it from the outside, it will look like the Wild West, and it can be if you're not prepared to get into the space. But it's all about preparation, processes, pipelines, and getting to true insights, true data, up to date, precise, and measuring all of those things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, all this is true. And another thing is, when you say get involved, to me, what that means, if you're like a smaller dev team, you want to do some marketing for your game, and you don't have, let's say that you don't have a tremendous amount of budget, right? Because that's another reason why people don't do it. They're like, hey, it's going to cost me a lot, right? These guys charge a lot. Well, in some cases, yes. In other cases, no. It really depends how you approach it. And I think, like, when you have visibility on which communities you should go after, which communities you should connect with, because they're the most interested, based on data, they're the most interested in your game. Well, then connect with them, and don't just, add them to a list on StreamForge or another platform. Just, go to their stream, engage with them. Maybe set up an account with the name of your dev team, right? Hey, love what you guys are doing. Just start engaging with them. Start watching their content too. Because here's the thing. I think a lot of people have the wrong idea of what influencer marketing is because they think it's just to sell more games. Well, I think it can help developers develop their games better. Because if you connect with communities that care about your game the most, early on, you watch your content and you watch them play other games. Well, guess what? They have a lot of opinions and they can be playing games that are similar to the game you're about to launch. And they can give you a tremendous amount of insight on your game without even knowing that they're, impacting development of your game. But get in there, talk to these guys, or just at the very least, watch their content, be interested, be there. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of value that can be extracted by doing something like this earlier on.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well, Xavier, you make some really good points there, and that's something I wanted to dive into too, because we're talking about things. You guys are mentioning things about like data and insights and all these other things. And Xavier, you provided a great example of like, hey, great, there's platforms that do this, but if I don't know what that is, and all this, of course, is to be used to find your audience, to find and target the right audience. But like, how much more does this data and information play in, better targeting, what are some other maybe examples and stuff that could be helpful, and why this insight, this data is so imperative to, really getting things down to a really strong ROI?
Well, because data is the most effective way to know which communities to engage with. That's the bottom line. That's the straight up answer. That's the short answer that I have for you. And with the innovation in that space that we've experienced in the last year, for example, like we just launched like a new tech based on AI. I don't know AI, it's another topic of discussions and everybody has their own opinion on it, but I'll tell you something. Try feeding billions of data points on a 5-minute basis to a human being and wait until they implode. You know what I'm saying? Only AI can deal with that type of data, right? So when you feed AI the right data and you work with it to do things that would be impossible to do with humans, then what we're able to do is incredible, and we're able to present our customers with what are the interests of these creators and their audiences? What are their traits? What are their demographics? And then basically what brands can do with that information, with that type of data, is they can take the personas they're trying to target and then find those exact personas amongst different channels on social media, on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. So that's something that's brand new. It's something that just came up this year, in the past 12 months. And there's so much more innovation that's happening right now with the revolution of AI. And again, for me, from my understanding, AI is not there to replace anyone. It's there to do things that are impossible to do without it, And so, but things are moving fast. There's a lot of extremely valuable insight that is being developed. And I see it almost as like, and I think it goes even beyond that, but like, advanced statistics in sports, for me, we're getting into that realm and even beyond when it comes to influencer marketing.
Yeah, and I think like the starting point is getting everything Xavier is mentioning, right? The data about the creators, the data about the type of games they play, how they interact with their audience, who their audience is, what age range they have, all of that. That's like kind of the starting point to build out your strategy. And then the other challenge is, okay, but now that I've sent out a key to X, Y creator, am I just looking at my Steamworks backend and waiting for wish listing purchases to drop? No, you need to use that data gathering mechanism into that reporting as well. We're talking about ROI, and something I think that has changed a lot in that point of view of what influencer marketing is specifically what you're talking about, Andrew. Is like we need to be able to track that ROI, and I think too many people were not setting themselves up to be able to measure the ROI with influencer marketing by just sending keys, crossing their fingers and hoping for the best. I think like the right way to approach it is you need to be able to track that just as well as you can track ads. And it's possible at scale if you use, the right tools. Basically, you're able to set up UTM tracking. You can set up different ways to make sure that you're able to attribute traffic, attribute obviously wish list, the golden standard of indie games, and then attribute what should be the real gold standard purchases to those creators by measuring that and being able to react in real time. So you need to find tools that help you, see that come in as it's coming. And that's one of the sad truths of Steam. You'll only be able to react 24 hours later. But if you have other tools that let you track how influencers are directing traffic, at least you can, curb your strategies to make good use of that, and even inform future ones, because the game's marketing cycle is not done once the game is out, which is another problem that a lot of people kind of wrestle with, is that once you've done a successful campaign and successfully measured that UTM tracking or that ROI on those influencers, is like, who is driving the best return on that investment? And, then it's an interesting retro engineering part of the marketing cycle of like, okay, but how do we find more creators, similar to this? How can we double down on those existing communities? So it's really about, it's two-pronged, right? Find the right people and then measure the people right, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to take this back real quick to what Xavier said earlier, which is in summarizes this so well, which is, just find the people who care the most about your game. But in order to do that, it really comes down to having that insight and information as you shared, because and with all the tech and things that can really help us do this, because let's face it, as a human doing a lot of this work is just mind-boggling, or will cause severe burnout if you're not careful, and all these other things. But again, what's happening now is something that's really remarkable, and that a lot of us haven't been able to do or even have access to until now. And it's taking essentially the subjective of just guessing, oh, what's a persona even? How do I create this persona? But now we're taking these subjective things that are hard to distill and understand, and now we're actually making them objective because we have clarity, we have direction on who this core audience is, right? And another way to look at it is we're just finding better and more efficient and creative ways to not focus so much on quantitative data, and looking at it from a qualitative perspective, right? We're putting more emphasis on the qualitative of things, because we haven't done this before. It's always been the metrics and numbers and all these other things, and now we're able to do this, like you're saying, like you're both saying, which is huge, and how we can get to that better ROI. Because if we're just blasting everything out there, it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah, I think quantitative stuff is fairly straightforward. Of course, there can be, in-depth analysis of data and numbers and whatnot, but qualitative stuff is the real challenging part. How do you understand who cares about what game, or who cares about what type of product, or so that's very exciting to be in the space at this moment, because we're seeing, as you mentioned, we're in the middle of that, or I would even go as far as to say we're leading that change in the industry. So it's extremely exciting.
Awesome. Yeah. So lots of really cool stuff going there. And it's nice to be able to understand better how just by pulling back these layers, making some references there, but pulling back these layers further, diving in a little bit deeper. So not just and think about it, not just, getting a better ROI with things such as like influencer campaigns, but also just getting in front of the right people. But with all this said, I mean, and as we're, looking at this type of stuff, is there anything how, times change and how adapting to these new ways of looking at information, play and predicting and measuring ROI influencer campaigns? Or, I guess, is there anything else on that front?
Oh, it's about adapting. You said it. It's like I think the the hard truth is that in games, no matter what you do, you need to be able to adapt. Like you can't use the same recipe over and over again. You can't look at a single blog post from, anyone and say, "Oh, this was a success. Let's replicate that success by doing the same thing." That is just not gonna happen. We're having a discussion with Xavier recently about, it's been a while already, but like Vampire Survivors, how that came out of nowhere, and ever since you haven't seen that, massive success with a survivor like, right? It was just the right game at the right moment, and everybody can write a dissertation about how that came to be and came to be the success that it was. And they were very smart with the results that they were getting early on, right? They reacted to what was happening and they adapted to that. And it's the same thing for influencer marketing. You need to adapt to where the market is and try to find out where the market is going, obviously, and use that to adapt to the shift in platforms, in how people cover games, and how people talk about games, and how people cover games. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, like, I mean, my goal in this episode personally is just to get, however many devs to be excited about influencer marketing. After this, listening to this, it's not too late, but it's certainly a right time to get into it, and it's so valuable to when done right, particularly. And I know it's daunting, but whether you're a dev that's looking to self-publish, you're not sure, you might sign up with a publisher, you're looking, it doesn't mean that you should wait for to have visibility on who's publishing what, like, to get started. Get started now. Build your community. Your game is your game. At the end of the day, you want to have control over, your community, ideally, right? And you want to have built a community before you even talk to a publisher. It's going to create a lot of value for your brand when you're going to publishing and say, "Hey, guess what? We already are talking to these influencers, these communities, whether they're big or small, it doesn't matter. Are they relevant to your game? Hey, publisher, I found the most relevant creators of, size agnostic, the most relevant communities for our game. And I've started engaging with them. We've started gathering feedback. Wow, that's like, if a publisher hears this, they're going to be impressed, and they're going to be like, okay, these guys are on the ball, So
Yeah.
I think for me, like, if we can have any kind of impact like this after someone's listened to this episode, I mean, I'll be happy,
And I think one thing I'll add to that too is simply look, like knowing this information, knowing how to approach this, even in the context of what we're talking about today, it's just going to get you more excited about your project. It's going to get you more excited about the people who are engaging with you, who are playing the game. I mean, I think that in itself is just really rewarding to get to a point where you actually know that much more about your audience and finding creative and fun ways to even serve them better. And so I think this whole approach and what Xavier was just calling out to goes well beyond just managing campaigns for a better ROI. It goes into the aspect of that plus knowing how to connect, knowing how to resonate, and just doing like down to the passion level of what people are creating games for in the first place, and understanding that to a level of clarity that we haven't been able to, which goes right back to what Xavier said. So because like getting excited about these things, not just influencer marketing, but any campaign, anything that you're doing with your game, because now you have more opportunities than ever before to share your passion and to better serve people. And I don't know, that just sounds like such a rewarding experience.
Yeah.
Well, and all that said, I mean, hey, look, lots of changes, there's lots of trends. I mean, is there anything like studios or publishers should kind of be prepared to, like, in the coming months, years, or is it more just the same? Just keep adapting and don't always like, hey, sure, have processes, but don't like stick to it to the T and thinking this is the end all solution to everything you face. But like, what things can people expect, and as we keep seeing emerging or new trends?
I think before talk about trend, for me, it's just to get people to do influencer marketing, to get involved, to get out there. I think we're going to see a lot more people doing it. I think in terms of like the trends in the market, I think we're going to see more automation, more platforms that support automation. We're going to see, companies making it easier to engage with smaller communities, more making it more seamless to connect with nano micro influencers. But again, like it's all well and good. I just think not enough studios are involved in influencer marketing. And again, personally, I want to really get people to do it regularly and understand the value. And that it's just not, it's not a nice to have. It's a must have. And it gives you so much value. And depending on how you do it, yes, it can like be a great vehicle to promote your game when it launches. But again, it can impact game development. It's a tremendous potential focus group for you guys. It's like, you get in these communities and you can talk to people and you can really, really get a sense of if you're hitting the mark with your game. So again, that's, I could talk about trends all day, but my focus is really on let's get people to just do more influencer marketing and understand the value of it. And I think the word as well, to be honest, is inaccurate because I think it goes beyond marketing. I think we might want to call it influencer relations. I don't know. Maybe we can come up with with a new name for it, but because I feel like and that's a pretty well known thing. Like a lot of small studios don't have a marketing person. Okay, yeah. It's often, like we said, an afterthought, and maybe the fact that it's called marketing and just turns people off. Well, how about influencer relations? Is that better? I don't know, but it's more than just marketing, is my point. So
to echo that point, and to talk about more of a trend that we're seeing and we're hoping to see more of is specifically what Xavier is mentioning, like not seeing the launch as being the only point where you should think about influencer relations, to call it that way. Now we've just rebranded it. It's how can you use it pre-launch? How can you use it post-launch? We've seen people run campaigns when they have a Steam daily deal. Like it's one day. You have one day where you're gonna get full-on visibility on the front page of Steam. And as we talked to months ago, Andrew, like how are you gonna take advantage of that beat if you're not layering other ingredients in that? You have your main point of entry for players that's going to display you on their front page. If you don't do anything else, I mean, all right, cool, you'll get a quick bump in sales. But if you run even an unpaid one, organic campaign outreach to influencers that will run on that day, I guarantee you that you're going to get better results. You're going to sell more games because a lot more people will hear about it. People that didn't happen to land on Steam on that day might hear about you. And then every time you have a discount, like you don't need to constantly be paying influencers. And I think that goes back to the fallacy that Xavier was alluding to earlier. Doesn't need to always be a big cost sink to work with influencers and content creators. It's you can do a lot with organic outreach if you know who to reach, because they will react well to you outreaching and they will be happy to play your game. And in some instances, like recently, I was looking at some results and somebody just did a completely organic outreach and got 500% delivery from the creators because they did one of the best targetings I've seen done. Again, that sounds salesy, but on our platform, I was like, you nailed it right on the head. You went to the right people and they played your game for 10 hours on stream for free. And, they generated a ton of sales through that. So it's really about, think about it, holistically, and we're seeing it come and we want to see more of it, basically.
Well said, both of you. Hey, look, I know we're coming on time here, so real quick, we've covered a lot today. What are 3 tips, suggestions that you could share with our listeners?
I mean, just to kind of like wrap it up and go back to everything that was said, to me falls down to monitor content creation as soon as you can, earlier on, get prepared, engage with creators sooner, and then keep monitoring your games after launch. Like too often, and it's this one falls down to this one tip for me, right? is like stop focusing so much on the launch of your game, your DLC, your patch, your CD. Just look at everything else. Look at how you can engage and find them before, what kind of value you can get from monitoring content before, getting into these streams, into these videos, engaging with the community. Look at who's been playing your game after launch, not just 2 days after it, but 2 weeks, 2 months even, right?
Yeah.
Keep engaging with those communities and those creators over time.
Yeah.
So that would be it for me.
All right. And, great points there. And you know what? Of those points to maybe potentially help with some of those, you guys do have a promotion or offer. It sounds like exclusively for listeners today. So if you don't mind, what is that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We're offering only for the listeners. You have to mention that you heard us on this podcast, and we're giving a pretty crazy deal, actually, 30% off all deals. So if you're signing for a year on StreamForge, that means it's 50% off, which is actually, if I'm not mistaken, that's the biggest discount we've ever given by far.
We're going crazy here.
What we really want, we really want to help, small publishers, small devs, just to get in that space, right? And for us, like, it's just one way for us to be able to do that. Like, until the end of the year, if you reach out to us, you can email us at sales@streamforge.com, and you mention the podcast, we'll give you that discount. Also, feel free to reach out to me or on Antoine or on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
So we're happy to talk. If you have any questions, just want to, bounce off ideas and whatnot, happy to do that. As you can see, we're very passionate about the industry, so we love to help when we can.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, again, reach out, sales@streamforge.com if you want to take advantage of that, folks. Otherwise, LinkedIn is a great place to connect. And of course, streamforge.com?
Yeah, streamforge.com. And we'll share, I assume you'll share all the links.
Everything will be in the show notes. So
There'll be a lot. We're also looking at the Blue Sky. There's this big exodus from Twitter to Blue Sky. So
whatever we got, we will share it so you know how to connect. Hey, once again, Xavier, Antoine, thank you so much for today. It's been great to have you guys back and talk more about this really important topic.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.